Well, as families go about the process of healing, Texas must begin the rebuilding process. Many communities harmed by this disaster need immediate help from the state and the federal governments for the restoration of public infrastructure, such as roads, bridges, schools, and government buildings and other public facilities. Swift and effective restoration of damaged public infrastructure is required. The state of Texas must provide the coordinated leadership that is required if we're going to be able to assist local governments and our citizens with the resources they need to facilitate the recovery and the rebuilding effort. Our mission is clear. We must help displaced families. We must help our communities rebuild. We must cut red tape and speed the rebuilding process. We must improve the lives of all Texans by quickly restoring the economic preeminence of the Lone Star State. This storm and the devastation that it caused deserves a Texas-sized response. And Texas is up to the challenge. We've been challenged by disasters before. Whether it's been hurricane or flood or fire, we have always come together to make Texas stronger. We need to recognize that because of the magnitude of this storm, the road to recovery is not going to be a short one. But we will, once again, triumph over tragedy, and we will come together and make Texas even stronger. Our first concern is always for the families who have been impacted. I would like to thank the remarkable professionals at FEMA who've been working so diligently for their outstanding assistance to families already, knowing the profound role that they will be playing going forward. I thank the President for his commitment to stand with our families for as long as it takes, and the swift response that we're seeing from Congress already for the funding they are seeking to provide. I thank our local leaders who've worked long hours under harsh and demanding conditions to help their citizens. And I want you to know, you have my commitment to continue working on a daily basis to ensure that we take care of our families. To help our communities rebuild the public infrastructure, such as the roads, the bridges, the schools, and other facilities damaged by Hurricane Harvey and the flooding that came in its aftermath, I'm establishing the Governor's Commission to Rebuild Texas. This task force has multiple facets that are going to be incredibly important that John Sharp will articulate in more detail in a second. But the primary goal of this task force is to ensure that we efficiently and effectively and swiftly bring resources of all state agencies working together. It's to help our communities assess their needs, to help them in navigating state and federal resources, to advocate for their interests before Congress and before the Texas State Legislature, to give them access to the expertise available to them to rebuild Texas even better than before. Now, in looking for a person to lead this effort, I needed someone of a very unique skill set. Someone who knows how to work with local officials, with state officials, as well as federal officials. Someone who has a natural, intuitive feel for the people in these communities who've been affected by the storm. Someone who has mastered the complexity of budget issues at state and federal finance levels. And someone with a comprehensive understanding of our state agencies and the resources they can bring to bear to help us deal with this challenge. I found that person in a former state representative and a former state senator who represented large geographic regions of the impacted area. He represented all the way from Rockport, Texas to Fort Bend County. I found a person who served as a former railroad commissioner who understands the pivotal role that the oil and gas sector plays in our rebuilding efforts. A former comptroller who mastered Texas finance and studied every agency in the state of Texas, and who is known for his ability to cut through red tape, and a chancellor of one of America's preeminent engineering universities. And I found all of those attributes in a single person, John Sharp, the Chancellor of Texas A&M University. I've asked Chancellor Sharp to serve as Commissioner of the Governor's Commission to Rebuild Texas. And I have a simple charge for Commissioner Sharp, and that is to rebuild Texas ahead of schedule, under budget, and with a friendly smile of constant consumer service. Now, we realize that a storm of this size is going to require a team of more than just one person. Every official in the state of Texas has a role to play. For those who are not familiar with Texas government, in the executive branch of government, we have an array of officials who are elected officials who already have played meaningful roles, who will continue to work with Commissioner Sharp as well as myself as we proceed forward. We have an outstanding legal team in the Attorney General's office. We have an outstanding finance team in the Comptroller's office. We have an outstanding team leading land-based issues in the Land Commissioner's office. We have an agricultural commissioner who can help us address those unique needs. And we have an elected railroad commission of 3 people who focus on the energy, oil and gas, as well as some related sectors. In addition to those elected officials, I have behind me leaders of many of the agencies that will be involved in this rebuilding process. Behind me, we have Chief Nim Kidd, who is the chief of the Texas Division of Emergency Management. We have Steve McCraw, the director of the Texas Department of Public Safety. We have Charles Smith, the Commissioner of Health and Human Services. We have General Nichols, the Adjutant General of Texas. Mike Morath, the Commissioner of TEA, the Texas Education Agency. James Bass, the Executive Director of the Texas Department of Transportation. John Hellerstedt, the Commissioner of the Texas Department of Health Services. Brian Shaw from TCEQ, who will play a pivotal role, and working with him, we have with us here today Sam Coleman, the Acting Administrator for Region 6 of the EPA. I want you to know that we know, and you all know, that there are multiple environmental concerns, and we want to be able to address those so effectively that we now and going forward will have someone from the EPA embedded in our state operations center, working hand in hand with TCEQ to make sure we respond to this disaster in the most environmentally safe way. We have, let me see, someone who's really been working around the clock. I cannot thank enough for his very swift response to the urgent demands we have, and that is Tony Robinson, the FEMA Regional Director. And we have on the side someone who will play a pivotal role, Billy Hamilton, who currently works with Chancellor Sharp, who will work with him on this commission. And then we have, where's Reed? Always my, the Reed Clay, who has long worked with me. He's the Chief Operating Officer for the Governor's Office and will play a pivotal role throughout this entire process. But at this time, I would like to pass the mic to the Commissioner for this effort to rebuild Texas, Commissioner John Sharp.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. I grew up in a small town called Placido in Victoria County, near where Harvey made landfall first. And I know well the charms and the challenges of living on the Gulf Coast, having represented about a third of the Gulf Coast, even in the state Senate. I was reared with small town values that were filled with neighbors helping neighbors that we have seen spread all over Texas in the last several weeks. We've all been inspired by the scenes of our fellow Texans, our fellow Americans coming to the aid of their neighbors in the devastating aftermath of the hurricane and flooding. And frankly, if we can do as good a job as average Texans have done in helping their neighbors, we would be a role model for the rest of the country. We're grateful for the many lives spared, and we're sorrowful for the lives that have been lost so far. The road to recovery is going to be long, but Texans are a tough breed. Governor, I'm honored to coordinate this effort to bring together all of the amazing resources of our state agencies to help our Gulf Coast communities rebuild not only critical institutions, but also to ensure critical economic growth for the region in the future. In bringing together the expertise of the state agency leaders in this room and teams from across the great state, we will rebuild Texas, and we'll build it even better than it was before. I'm committed to bringing the resources of the A&M University system alongside this team to provide all the support that is needed. Since Governor Abbott approached me about this responsibility, we've been working hard to draft a plan. Through our first most important step will be to visit with leaders in each community, which we will start right after this meeting. We want to make sure every county, every city, every school district will get everything their citizens deserve and do it as efficiently as possible. We're very much aware that this money comes from hard-earned work by the taxpayers in the United States of America, and we're going to treat this money as if it were our own personal money, and we're going to do it efficiently. Our intent is not to interfere with or duplicate the responsibilities with any other state or federal agencies. We will focus on restoring the public infrastructure to provide a one-stop shop for access to state and federal resources and to ensure local officials are armed with information crucial for decision-making. There will be an information clearinghouse team located in each county affected. These teams are going to be backed up by an assistance center at the A&M system headquarters in College Station, which will be staffed by experts in problem solving and everything from applying for federal aid to vector control to engineering, construction. One of the guiding principles will be to future-proof what is being rebuilt so as to mitigate these risks as much as possible in the future. We have more basic details of our plan ready to hand out today to the local officials that we're going to meet for the next 3 days. Their needs will drive our structure, and we will respond with urgency. There will be no greater charge than to make sure those mayors, those judges, those public officials, school officials have everything, including information and resources that they need to do their jobs effectively. We understand their importance above all. Governor, you've given us a big job with your leadership in collaboration with local officials. We will rebuild an even greater Texas Gulf Coast. Harvey may have staggered us, but it didn't knock us out. And I pledge to you and our fellow Texans the very best that Texas has to offer.
Thank you very much.
A couple of more comments, and then we'll take a few questions. One is that a key component of what we're seeking to achieve by this commission is to ensure that every local official is going to have the support they need to be able to rebuild, knowing that the local officials know best what the needs of their local constituents are. We want to establish a single point of contact. So these local officials, when they have an emergency, which will be every single day, know who to call, who to get plugged in to these various agencies that embody the state of Texas. And this commission will be in charge of ensuring that contact is made, in addition to so many other things. Also, we are extremely grateful for the array of unparalleled resources that Texas A&M itself is able to bring to this table. As many of you know, under Chapter 418 of the Government Code, in times of disaster like this, the governor has access to a lot of assets. And I want you to know that we fully are expecting other university systems across the state of Texas to provide us with similar resources as we work collaboratively to be able to respond to this challenge. I know that with the team we have, we're going to be able to respond quickly and effectively to make sure we rebuild Texas. That said, we'll take a few questions.
Governor, regarding debris removal, the trash outside
We want to get it removed as quickly as possible. Overnight, FEMA made clear they're providing resources up front to accelerate the debris removal process across the entire region. And so this is already going to be a swift response to make sure we can get it removed in an environmentally safe way.
Transitional housing. Does the state yet have a plan for transitional housing in the Houston area and other areas? If so, what is that?
Right. Mike, one of the benefits of having a team like this is we have experts in every subject matter area. For housing-based needs, first let me separate this. There are 2 or 3 large categories that we will be involved in. One is called public assistance. The other is called individual assistance. Public assistance involves the rebuilding of the infrastructure, which is what this commission would be focused on. Individual assistance is primarily, not exclusively, an issue that FEMA is involved in. As a result, wherever we go, we're going to have a FEMA official with us. We happen to have the regional administrator who, every time I go over to the Emergency Operating Center, he has been there. He's the master of the knowledge of the information in question, so I'm going to have him answer your question. Tony, can I get you to come up?
Sure, thanks.
As the governor said,
It's the man right here.
It's a collective effort. So right now, we've got congregate shelters and the transitional sheltering assistance, which is our hotel motel program where people apply for assistance and are eligible can go to those. We're working right now on a myriad of options that will work with the local government, because as the commission has said, is the best decisions are made at that local level about what people can, housing for them. We want to get them back in their damaged dwelling. That's the key thing, is the more we can get them back so they're near their schools, near their jobs, that's what we want to work on. So we're looking at options that we can get them near their homes, help with repair of their damaged dwelling, or bring in other types of housing that can get them close to where they live and work.
Like trailers or maybe longer-term transitional housing?
That may be one of the options, yes, sir.
Governor, any concerns that what might be about to happen in Florida will hinder the ongoing efforts here?
Well, the biggest concern I have about Hurricane Irma is the disaster that could wreak to the United States of America, to the people of Florida on up north of Florida. So the deepest concern is one for life of those affected and the damage it could cause to Florida. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it will head eastward and hopefully miss Florida. Absent that, we as Americans are all in to assist those who will be affected by Irma. I have visited all day yesterday and this morning with officials to make sure that the state of Texas, as well as those affected by Irma, will all be addressed. I've talked to people from the top down in the federal government, as well as members of both the House and Senate, and they are committed to ensure that Texas will continue to receive the resources it needs in order to be able to rebuild, despite what may happen with Irma. Listen, there have been multiple occasions when there have been multiple disasters affect the United States. The United States has always come through to help our fellow citizens rebuild.
How do you square your personal philosophy against restrictive local ordinances with the fact that there's not that many of those ordinances in Houston contributed to the flooding? How do you square those two things together?
Could you be more clear? I'm not understanding that.
You've talked about trying to have ordinances going forward to reduce flooding in Houston in the future, and how is that not like having tree ordinances, for instance, or annexation ordinances?
Yeah, well, one thing is I think it's pretty clear that tree ordinances don't have anything to do with what happened. Other questions?
Time for 2 more and then we're out.
Or is there a time certain where
It's open-ended to make sure that we get the job done, but we are committed to getting the job done as swiftly as possible.
Last question.
Funding will this commission have? Where is it coming from and how much do you expect?
Well, under my authority, under Chapter 418, I have available to me the resources of all state agencies in the state of Texas. The funding for the commission comes from each agency that is providing the resources that we need. Now, if there's any out-of-pocket costs, it may be either the state of Texas or the federal government picking up those charges. We currently have an agreement with the federal government, whether it be where certain charges the federal government will pick up 100%, such as debris removal, for example, for the first 30 days. There will be other instances where there's a 90-10 cost-sharing agreement. And so the answer is, it depends. But I want you to know that because of the powers that I have under Chapter 418, I'm able to bring all these resources from all these agencies with no additional out-of-pocket cost to the state of Texas. These are all public servants for the state of Texas who are focusing their time and their attention on addressing the most urgent need of our citizens. Thank y'all very much.